Hey, today is day 8 of the Power Skills Masterclass series. And today we're going to be diving into something that usually brings about a lot of anxiety for folks. I know for me in the past it has, and sometimes still does, right? If there's a difficult situation that we need to have a conversation around, then sometimes that can be pretty anxiety inducing, right? So that's what we're going to be digging into today. Having difficult conversations, being in difficult situations, how to best handle those situations, and how they impact your health, wealth, and relationships, and why it's so important to make sure that you do know how to best have these difficult conversations. I am Angela W. Stillwell. I'm the founder and CEO of Untapped Strengths, and I work with individuals to transform them into top 1% leaders and teams to transform into powerhouses so that that health, wealth, and relationship aspect is right where they need it to be. So let's dive in on this topic on how to have difficult conversations. Why is this a power skill? Well, I don't know. Have you ever had to have a difficult conversation before? They can be incredibly, like I said, anxiety inducing. You get a knot in your belly, or maybe a lump in your throat, or your head hurts, or your mouth goes dry, or your heart pounds, or you get super anxious just thinking about it. And, you know, we all either will have the opportunity, we get to look at this as an opportunity. We will all have an opportunity to do this, or we have already had an opportunity to do this. We're going to have more opportunities to do this. And most so often, if we don't do the work to really know how to go into these conversations, into these situations, then what happens is things can quickly go sideways. And then there's stuff that has to be cleaned up. And look, there can be stuff that needs to be cleaned up anyway. Even when you go at this in your best way, there can still be things that need to happen in order to clean situations up. I found myself, I'm going to take these bracelets off so they're not making a lot of noise. I found myself recently in a situation where needed to have a very difficult conversation, and it gets to be a two-way street, right? If the other person isn't wanting to have it, then you get to decide where to go from there. And so if they are willing to have it, then what we're going to talk about today will help you prepare for that difficult conversation. And you guys, listen, this particular skill, well, actually, all of the skills that we've been talking about are perfect for business environments, but they're also really, really crucial for your personal relationships as well. Okay. Your personal relationships and situations. So, yes, I tend to work more from the business perspective, but guess what? Personal flows right into business. In fact, I'm going to touch on some of that today. So your personal life does impact your business life, and your business life does impact your personal life. And the idea of being able to keep them completely separate is just not even really a thing anymore, right? So let's jump in. Most people, and truly most people, when it comes to having a difficult conversation around a difficult situation, perhaps with a difficult person, so often people will do things like they'll hide from it. They'll avoid having the conversation. They'll avoid the person. They'll avoid the situation. And that doesn't do anything to make it better, right? That just allows it to continue to fester and grow and further build the anxiety. If you're not preparing yourself ahead of time, you may say things that you don't mean. Your emotions may get the best of you in the middle of it, and it's not a good situation to be in. So what are the steps? There's 3 steps that we're going to dig into, and then we'll get a little further into all of this. There's 3 things, though, 3 steps that are great to follow when you know that there's a difficult situation going on, so that you can prepare for the difficult conversation, right? The first thing is recognizing the elephants in the room. We've all heard that phrase, right? An elephant in the room, or elephants in the room. It's there, it exists, and you can't get around it, but nobody wants to mention the fact that there's an elephant in the room. So recognizing the fact that there are elephants in the room, right? What's causing it? What really is the situation? Is it a person? Is it something that's, kind of under the surface? It's not really clear. You'd love for it to be more clear. Maybe it's just a feeling that you have. There's something like maybe your intuition is saying that things aren't exactly the way that you want them to be, or desire for them to be, or, really are striving for them to be. It could be all sorts of things. Some of them are very blatant, like a literal elephant in a room would be very blatant, right? But then sometimes there's that imaginary elephant in the room, and it's based on things that are just below the surface. And so first of all, recognizing that there are elephants in the room. The second is acknowledging it. Okay, there's that elephant. What is that elephant? Let's acknowledge it. Let's just say, okay, this is it, right? Maybe there is a person at work and you just kind of butt heads regularly. Or maybe this is even in your personal life. There's someone that you just butt heads with regularly, or you just have this feeling. Well, acknowledge the feeling. Acknowledge the thought. Recognize it, then acknowledge it. And then what you're going to do is understand the cause. What is causing it? Take the time to really dig in and understand what's causing this feeling, what's causing this situation, right? So recognize, acknowledge, and then understand. And when you're doing this whole process, you're going to be looking at symptoms and you're going to be looking at sources. Now, oftentimes the symptoms are much easier to recognize than are the sources. So when you're looking at symptoms, you may recognize the symptom long before the difficult situation really rears its head, or it could be that it's like right then, right? The symptom is right then. So what you want to do, there's a quote by Steve Jobs that says, it's easier to connect the dots in reverse. Right? It's easier to connect the dots in reverse. We would love to be able to connect the dots in life going forward. Like, how does this situation impact the next situation, impact the next situation, impact the next situation? And that's not how life works. You connect the dots of life in reverse. You have to look backwards often in order to go, oh, well, that led to this, and that led to this, and that led to this, and that led to this. And by the way, everything in your life has gotten you to where you are right now. Everything in your life has gotten you to where you are right now. Good, bad, or indifferent. And where you are right now is going to get you to where you are tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So if you're wanting to see changes, you get to confront those difficult situations, those difficult topics. You get to have some of those difficult conversations, right? And sometimes those difficult conversations start with a difficult conversation with ourselves. Like, how long are you going to tolerate this? Like, if I'm having the conversation with myself, it would be, hey, Ange, you see the situation, you feel it, your intuition is telling you about it, you have a little bit of anxiety around it, you know it's going on. How long are you going to tolerate it? When are you going to do something about it? When are you going to step up and do something about it? Ever have one of those kind of conversations with yourself? Yeah. So we get to recognize what those symptoms are, so that we can then go, okay, well, so now we see the symptoms. What's the source? And the source, like I said, can be a little bit harder or a lot harder in some instances to identify. What's the source of the difficulty? Is it based on, I'm going to use business terms. And when I use these terms, they also can be community, family, etc. So the first is organization. Like, is there something going on within the organization? An organization can be the business, it can be the family, it can be the community, right? It could be the church, it could be whatever that looks like. So is it at the organizational level, or is it at the team level? Team could be in a family, the couple, right? Is the couple having an issue, or is there a child that's having an issue, right? Is there a member of the family that is pushing this team in like a weird place, right? And then the individual level. So what is it in each of those? We're going to keep breaking this down and breaking this down. And as I'm breaking this down, I want you to do a few things. I want you to, first of all, I want you to think about what is coming up for you as I'm talking about this. Is there a situation where you can immediately apply this? And what's coming up physically for you as you think about that situation? Are you feeling it in your belly? Is your heart starting to race thinking about having to have this difficult conversation? Are you feeling it in your throat? Maybe you're feeling it in a left knee or something. I don't know. I've had clients feel these things in lots of seemingly weird places. Some people get it in their lower back. Look, your body keeps score. There's actually a book that talks about the body keeps score. But your body keeps score of the anxiety and the emotions and the things that you feel day to day. And when there is a difficult situation that is going on and you're not dealing with it, then your body is keeping that score. Okay. It just is. Whether it's personal or business, your body is keeping score in some form or fashion. That's where I'm talking about. This impacts your health. And then when it starts impacting your health, that also impacts your wealth. And it's obviously impacting your relationships. If there's a difficult situation going on, it's impacting your relationships, business, personal, whatever that looks like. So as I'm talking about this, I really want you to think about what's going on physically for you. And I also want you to get really curious about what your mind is saying. Okay. What are you saying to yourself about it? I can't have that conversation. Like, how would I even bring that up? Or, oh my gosh, I don't want to have to do that. Or I really hate having difficult conversations. I hate confrontation. I have people tell me all the time, I hate confrontation. Guess what? Life has confrontations in it. So what if you could change your mindset around hating it? Look, none of us love confrontation. There are some people who are very confrontational, and that's their way of dealing with things. It's not that they love confrontation. They love the way it makes them feel because of the way that they handle themselves. Okay. So if you're a person who says, I hate confrontation. Okay. I get that. Totally get that. And how can we shift that so that you can start healing your body, healing your relationships, healing your health, healing your wealth, right? So, I mean, while we talk about these power skills being things that are pertinent in a business scenario or in your personal lives, it's not just because they're impactful. They're impactful because they enhance or take away from, if you don't have them, in your health, your wealth, and your relationships. These skills impact all three of those areas of your life. And this one in particular that we're talking about today, and the one that we will talk about tomorrow, are huge, particularly in today's environment. There is a lot of confrontation going on in today's environment. Has been since the beginning of time, but especially over the last few years. Think about a couple of summers ago. Remember the riots and all of that? Those were physical confrontations. And we still, as a society all around the world, have this heightened sense of this tribal mentality. I was mentioning, the book The Rule of the Clan, and how that tribal mentality is the basis for operating for everyone when they get backed into a corner. So having difficult conversations, being in difficult situations, is going to push people into that tribal mentality, operating from that place. Okay. So in order to keep from operating that way, you get to prepare ahead of time. So I want to get back to the source. So from an organizational standpoint, some of the things that could be the source could be unclear goals or visions. This is both business and personal. If two individuals are trying to have a relationship, whether it is in an intimate space or a business space, if their goals and visions are not clear and are not articulated in a way that both can understand and perhaps agree on, then this friction can come up, right? And then the anxiety and all of that. So unclear goals or visions, lack of meaningful values, right? We all have values, and we all speak to those values. Are we living to them? Are we living into them? Right? Inconsistent policies, lack of support or resources, ineffective direction. So from that organizational aspect, remember, and when I'm saying organization, that can be business or it can be personal, depending on where your scenario is. Just remember, you can apply this in both scenarios. And then in the team environment, unclear roles, right? Ineffective communication, ineffective project management, micromanagement. Look, yes, again, business terms, and so true in personal relationships as well. Nobody likes to be micromanaged, or very few people like to be micromanaged. Most people don't want their spouse micromanaging what they're doing, and most people don't want their bosses micromanaging what they're doing. Kids don't want to be micromanaged either. So how do we get around that so that we're not creating these difficult situations that then lead to difficult conversations? Okay. And then from an individual perspective, different styles. I'm going to get into that in just a minute. Different personality styles, opposing perspectives and beliefs. Look, we all have different perspectives and beliefs based on our childhoods, school, religion, all sorts of things have impacted our perspectives and our beliefs and the lens through which we see everything in life. And in a personal scenario, we can have those conversations. In a business environment, when you're hiring someone or someone's on your team and maybe they're having a difficult time around something, you can't necessarily talk to them about why they are perceiving or believing or behaving a certain way based on their childhood. You can't ask those questions. You can ask, what's going on? Is there a difference in perspective? What's your perspective on this? That sort of thing. But to get into what caused them to have that perspective from way back when, we can't bring that up in a business environment. And yet those things are driving 80 to 90+% of every decision you make, action you take, and result that you get. So we get to recognize the fact that this is ongoing, period, end of story, right? Personal problems. Remember I said, yes, we have personal problems. And used to, people said, leave your personal problems at home, leave your business problems at work. So many of us work remotely. So many of us are online. So many of us are doing so many. It's almost impossible now to keep the business and the personal life separated. It's almost impossible. So what you get to do is step into your leadership around it, right? That's a whole other ball game. And deal from that place. If you're not accepting that responsibility, 100% responsibility 100% of the time, then you're not stepping into your leadership, and you're not focusing on how to improve, right? Disengagement. Anybody hear of quiet quitting lately? Yeah. So disengagement is another one. Conflicting values and body language. So those are some of the actual sources of what is causing the difficult situation that then brings about needing to have a difficult conversation, right? So let's look at the outcomes and benefits. What is the story that I'm going to go through a list of questions, and this is the first one. So one of the things in dealing with in improving your power skills is learning to ask better questions. So around this topic of difficult situations and difficult conversations, what is the story you're making up about the difficult situation? Now, remember, I'm talking about the story and the meaning that you're giving it, or giving that person, right? Based on your lens, based on your perspective, based on your beliefs. What is that story that you're giving it? I think the other day I was talking about, we judge others based on their actions, and we judge ourselves on our intent. Is that what we're doing? Are we judging someone else or the situation based on the action versus the intent? Because if that's what we're doing, then we get to back up and see how we can shift that. Because anytime we're doing that, we are forcing that other person to become defensive, to it breaks trust. Let's just go there. So again, is it based on your personal beliefs? And then look at it and say, okay, and the meaning that I'm giving this, is it true? Is it true? And sometimes we want it to be true, and then we realize it's not. So you get to be really clear with yourself about, is it even true? Whatever that meaning is that you're giving to something. And what's driving you? What's driving you in this belief, this decision that you're making about this difficult conversation or this difficult situation? Okay. The next question I want you to think about is, what happens if you do nothing? If you just let it keep going, what happens? What's the outcome going to be? Based on what you're seeing now, what's going to happen down the road? What's it going to look like? How are people going to respond? How are people going to react? What's going to be the end result if you do nothing, if you make no changes, if you don't speak up, if you don't have the conversation? What's going to be the outcome? And then next, what happens if we come to a resolution? What might that look like? Who's going to benefit? What will be the result? How will people respond? How will people react? What will then be the belief? What's the meaning that we give if we don't come to a resolution? And if we do, what is the meaning that we're giving it? Okay. All right. And you get to think about what specific behaviors either escalate the situation, the difficulty of the situation. Maybe it's the tempers or the flare-ups or the whatever it is. What causes the difficult situation to escalate? And what behaviors de-escalate it? Get clear. You're going to have to look backwards. You're connecting the dots in reverse. What escalated? What was going on when it escalated previously? What was going on when it de-escalated? Get really clear on it. There's clues back there already. Okay. There's always clues back there already. All right. And you get to look at this again based on the organization, the team, and the individual, right? Because it can be, some of the situations can be at all three levels. Okay. So you're going to get to look at this from each of those perspectives. All right. All right. So I want to talk about style for a second. And I've been talking a bit about this over this last week. Style, personality style, right? Um, we'll use DISC. There's both cognitive and cognitive personality assessments that are out there. DISC is cognitive. There's also the Gallup Strengths Finders. There is Myers-Briggs. There's a lot of different assessments that are out there. Then Colby is cognitive. And these styles, there's the inherent way of being, and then there is a learned way of being. And when you are operating in your inherent way or a learned way of being, and you're not taking into consideration the other people involved, it can cause even more friction. I will give the example again of myself. I am a very high D. I am as high D as one can get. And I'm also a very high I. I'm an incredibly low S, almost as low S as one can get. And I'm also a very low C. So D is driven, dominating. I is interpersonal. S is supporting, and C is compliance. Supporting and compliance, the rules and regulations. I don't understand rules and regulations. I just don't. I don't comply. I mean, yes, of course, there are some things that I do, and if there's something that doesn't make sense to me, it's like, okay, I don't. I'm one that will go and find new ways to do things. Okay, and I'm very bullet point. I'm very bottom line. I'm very, if there's a conflict going on, let's have a conversation about it. Let's figure out what the issue is. Let's find the next step. Let's do this. Let's don't avoid it. Let's dive in. And if a person is a high S or a high C, that's going to be very confrontational to them. Okay. And before I understood this, I would come into scenarios with my inherent way of being, my natural way of being about things, just because it was my way of getting things done. It was how I had survived. It was how I had thrived. It was how I had success until I didn't. Okay. And, when you are in relationship with someone, when you are in an office environment, when you are in a team scenario where there are multiple personalities going on around you and you're not paying attention to how others operate, then guess what? You are going to have headbutt situations. And that's not how you have a difficult conversation. In order to have a difficult conversation, you get to style flex with whomever it is that you are having the conversation, or with whomever the group is that you're having the difficult conversation, right? I mean, it could be a group where there's difficult brainstorming, right? Difficult collaboration because everybody's bickering. I have done workshops at organizations where it's conflict resolution, and that's a power skill. Being able to, resolve various conflicts. Difficult conversations is part of conflict resolution. I keep telling you, these things stack on top of each other. I had one where I was doing that workshop. I was coming in for half a day to work with a group, and they had some major issues going on. And I thought there were only going to be like maybe 10 people in the room, and there ended up with 30 people in a room that fit only about 5 people. No lie. And they closed the doors. Very heated. And I was like, okay, we got to open the doors, and we got to like really shift some of this energy in here, and getting people to, come to the table, lean in and collaborate and have difficult conversations while leaving the emotion out of it. Right. So, being able to bring that style in, recognize other styles, being able to style flex, so that you can respond responsibly, right? Respond responsibly. Um, Another way of looking at the disc is controlling. Are you controlling? Are you an analyzer? Are you a supporter? Right? There's different ways of all of the different assessments use different languaging. Just know that it is pertinent that you learn to flex your style based on the audience. Now, eventually, it'd be great if they also learn to flex their style. Maybe they will. Hopefully they will. And if you continue to help and they see you doing that with and for them, then many times they will, just because of the example that you're setting. Not everybody's going to do that. Okay. They're just not. However, oftentimes people will, because they see you setting that example. So you get to be the example. And look, there are people who love to compete. There are some people who love to collaborate. There are some people who love to compromise, and there are people who love to avoid. And when we're in these scenarios, we get to find who are the collaborators, who are the competitors, who are the combative, right? Who are the confrontational people, and try to get some melding going on in the room with those people or with that person, right? There's not a one size fits all. This is going to be, you get to this is something that you're going to get to practice. I'm going to talk about that in just a minute. So style flexing. And look, this is something that you practice regularly. You're going to get to practice having difficult conversations. And I want you to practice the style flexing based on whoever. And I'm not talking about being fake. That is not what I mean. I don't mean fake it till you make it. Okay. Because people can see through that. And then you break trust. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying we all have all of the components of the personality. Most personality assessments have 4 different categories. We all have some level of all 4 in our personality. We just tend to have 1 or 2 that are much more dominant. So it's not that I don't have S or C. I do. They're just a lesser amount. But when I'm dealing with someone who is very high in those, I get to dig down and pull out some of my own S or some of my own C, so that I can relate with them, so that I can have a conversation with them, right? All right. So how do you prepare yourself for one of these conversations, to be in the middle of one of these situations? Well, the first thing that you get to do is center yourself. There's a lot of different ways to center yourself. Okay. There's a lot of different ways. There's breathing exercises, journaling, stretching, body work, meditation, mindfulness. There's a whole list of things. I want you to find something that helps you center yourself. Okay. Boxed breathing is a great way to recenter. Boxed breathing is one where, the easy way to do it initially, particularly if you've never done it before. If you've never done it before, I want to encourage you to do very low numbers on these sides of the box, and you'll understand better what I'm talking about in just a minute. Because if you've never done this before, or if you have respiratory issues, you can get lightheaded. So, the first few times you do it, sit down while you're doing it. Okay. Promise. All right. So the boxed breathing means that you breathe in for a count. We'll say 3. Breathe in for 3, hold for 3, release for 3, hold for 3. In for 3, hold for 3, release for 3, hold for 3, right? And you just do that a few times, and you should feel your body recentering. Music is another thing that you can do. There's lots of meditation music, and there's one that there's a miracle morning song list on Spotify that you can pull up, and you can listen to some of that music. And there's the positivity aspect, and when you really listen into it, you can recenter yourself. You can start feeling better about things because the sounds that are used, the words that are used, right? Look, you guys, so much of this is based on what is happening between your ears. You get to recenter yourself based on what is happening between your ears. Your brain is going to be saying all kind of stuff when you are about to walk in a room to have a difficult situation, a difficult conversation, right? Or you're confronted with a difficult situation. Your brain kicks into the fight or flight or freeze. And you get to consciously take that over and decide how you want to respond rather than letting your amygdala kick in. Okay. I don't want to get into all of the science around that, but anyway, decide in advance how you want to respond. Decide in advance. And when you feel yourself getting anxious, when you feel yourself losing control, when you take a time out, say, you know what, I need a timeout. I feel myself getting worked up here. And in order to really be able to have this conversation with you, I need to take a few minutes. And by a few minutes, that may be a couple of minutes to step outside. It may be half a day. It may be, I will come back tomorrow after I've had some time to think about this. When you allow yourself to exit left because you feel yourself getting emotional, that allows you to regroup, that allows you to honor yourself and your own feelings, and it allows you to honor the other person as well. Okay. So it's not about avoiding. So when you say you're taking a timeout, it truly is just a timeout. This is not for forever. It's not an extended period of time. This is a limited amount of time, and you get to agree on that time with that person, and you can renegotiate. You can renegotiate if you need to. If 15 minutes isn't enough, then renegotiate for 30 or renegotiate for an hour. Or if you come back in and it starts getting heated longer, take another time out. Okay. You get to step into your leadership around this so that you can come to an outcome that everyone can live with. All right. So broaden your perspective, your meaning versus their meaning, really understanding where they're coming from, really understanding where you're coming from and the meaning that you're giving it and the meaning that they're giving it. So broaden your perspective, realize what else is going on. Collaborate on a solution. Now, listen, this is not necessarily where everyone is 100% happy. This is not that. It'd be great. If everybody can get there, that's fantastic. And that's not necessarily what collaboration on a difficult situation looks like. This is collaborating and agreeing on a resolution that everyone can live with and operate from. Okay? It's not about everybody being joyous and happy and all of those kinds of things. Great if you can get there. And if you can't, what can everyone live with so that you can get to the next step? Because maybe getting beyond where you are right now will allow everyone to get to a place where they are all 100% happy. Or maybe the team members shift at some point, and then, that brings in different blood, different thoughts, different perspectives, right? So, and then I want you to also have a discussion around, what if we don't come to a solution? What if we're not able to collaborate and come to a solution? Where does that leave us? Where does that leave us? What is it going to look like going forward? Are we willing to live with that? Is everyone going to be able to agree to that? If not, it's back to the drawing table, right? But you get to ask these tougher questions. And you guys have talked already over this masterclass about status quo, because often people are like, we just want to get back to status quo. No, there is no status quo. Things are always changing. Always changing. Life is always changing. Situations are always changing. People are always changing. The cells in your body that you have are not the same cells that you had 7 years ago. You're a completely new person. And today you're not the same person you were yesterday. There's something about you that has shifted. Status quo doesn't exist. There is always change going on. So what changes are we willing to live with? What changes do we want to have pushed on us? What changes do we want to drive ourselves? Right? So when you're looking at this, make sure that it's not that you're trying to get back to status quo, because remember, that doesn't exist. Change is going to happen. Are you going to drive the change, or is change going to drive you? You and whomever else is involved in this difficult situation and this difficult conversation get to make that decision together. Together. It's not one person calling the shots. You get to do this together. Okay? All right. So there's one thing that I really want you to keep in mind when you're having these conversations. I language versus you language. All right, I language is what I want you to use. It's not about you did this, you said this, when I saw you do X, Y, Z. It's not about the you. It's about the I. I see, I feel, I think, I experience, I intend. And whatever follows that is not with a, I intend for you to, I intend to, I am experiencing X, Y, Z. I see ABC, right? So it's keep it from your perspective, because when you start using you language, you put them on the defensive. And that's not where we want people to be. Remember, there's that whole tribal thing going on, and people get defensive and people like circle the wagons, and then they're shooting out, and it's just, you don't want to be there. Okay. So use I language as opposed to you language. And then be open to giving and receiving feedback, right? Prepare ahead of time and do this feedback thing regularly. This is not just business. This is personal too. You guys, in all of your relationships, you get to give feedback. You get to receive feedback. That's part of what makes a difference in really strong relationships. Giving feedback, receiving feedback, having difficult conversations, being able to come to resolutions, and being able to do it from a place of trying to understand each other, right? All of us bleed red. All of us bleed red. The vast majority of us have a lot more in common than we do differences. Start from those places. Start from those places with every difficult scenario, every difficult situation, every difficult conversation. Start from the commonalities. Start from the similarities. Okay? And then, remember, recognize, acknowledge, and understand. Recognize, acknowledge, and understand. People want to be recognized. People want to be acknowledged. People want to be understood. And when we can do that for someone else, it opens up for us to also be recognized, acknowledged, and understood. Right? Now, what I want to encourage you to do is practice this now. Where can you start practicing all of this, like right now? There are plenty of situations in the world today that are difficult. So how can you start practicing having difficult conversations? And what if we shift it from it being a difficult conversation? What if our mindset is, this is just a conversation so that we can come to a great resolution? Right? What if it doesn't have to be difficult? What if we can relieve the anxiety and just recognize that there is a difference of opinion, and we get to discuss what that difference of opinion is, and we get to work on a resolution together, whatever that resolution might be, right? Again, we all bleed red. We have a lot more similarities than we do differences. Start from that place. All right, that's it for today. Here's what I would love for you to do. If you have not gone to my link tree, I want you to go to my link tree, linktr.ee/AW Stillwell. If you go there, you will find a couple of things. One, you can get signed up for this. There's only one more day. And if you get signed up before that button comes down, then you're going to get the recordings. You're going to get the videos and you're going to get an audio so that you can listen to these as you are in your car or walking or running or biking or whatever that might look like, so that you can refresh yourself on these different power skills that we've been talking about over the last several days. And there also are some bonus pieces that are part of that. So my encouragement to you is make sure that you get signed up for that. I think it just asks for your name and your email address so that you can get access to that. And I will send you that. We will send you that information. You will get all of that in a portal link where you can sign in, and it's password protected, and you'll be able to have access to the videos and the audios and the bonus material inside the portal. So hope that you'll get signed up for that. The second thing that I would love to do is do connection calls with the people who have attended or got something great out of all of these different sessions that we've had. So I'd love to do a connection call with you. There's the first button on the Linktree page is signing up for the replays. And the second button is scheduling a 30-minute connection call. I hope that you will get scheduled for one of those. And I can't wait to have the connection call with you. You just go in there and you pick a date and time that works with your schedule that is open on my calendar. And a Zoom link will get sent to you, and we'll hop on and just have a conversation. I want to learn more about what you're doing, where you're going. And maybe is there a difficult situation that you are trying to maneuver around in that is impacting your health or your wealth or relationship, right? Because you can make the shifts to improve your health, to improve your wealth, to improve your relationships. Just know that it is possible. It absolutely is possible. It doesn't have to be the way that it is right now. You are a high performer. You're watching this because you're a high performer. Let's get you to that top 1%. Okay? Let's get you to that top 1%. And let's take your team. If you have a team, let's get your team to powerhouse mode, right? Let's do that. So schedule the call. Can't wait to have the connection call. And by the way, all we're going to do on that is connect. If we want to do something else later, we can do something else later. I just want to connect with you. All right. So have a great Monday, and I will see you tomorrow as we wrap up with the final of the power skills. It's not the last of power skills, but it's the final one we're going to talk about during this masterclass. And I look forward to seeing you tomorrow at noon Eastern time. Thanks, everybody. Bye.